Hey guys, welcome again to A Counselor's Journey. Hopefully you are doing well today. You're feeling good because I am here with Dr. Amanda Szabo with Good Health, Greensboro. How are you, Amanda?
I'm great. I'm great. It's great to be here, Juan.
Yeah, and this is your second time around, so thank you, right? Thank you for being here. I wanted to have you on for this episode to really go into how, what you're doing, what your husband's doing with good health, the field of chiropractic.
Chiropractic. I know it's weird, but anytime we refer to it, it's chiropractic. Yeah.
Okay, the field of chiropractic, how it helps with stress.
Mhm.
And you and I were talking before the interview. I was sharing with you, with the audience here, clinicians, mental health professionals, therapists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists. One thing that I think all of us really have a common ground in is utilizing resources. So, you're in the Greensboro community, maybe some clinicians out there in the Greensboro community. And if you're not, you're in, your beautiful community.
Mhm.
I want us to get into like a deep conversation with how, if one of our patients went to a chiropractor, how that would support with stress, so that from the clinical end, we are doing our best to provide, the very best ethical and effective service possible.
Yeah, the more I've come to understand how chiropractic actually works with the body, the more complementary it seems like counseling and chiropractic should be for managing stress. And yes, we are located in Greensboro. We do chiropractic and other supportive therapies like acupuncture, et cetera. So if you do have we're also in network with almost every major insurance company. So if you have a client and you're interested in finding a place for them, we would love to take care of them. You can reach our office at 336-509-4963. Or we're Good Health Greensboro Chiropractic and Wellness. So feel free to reach out to us in any way that you're comfortable with. But yeah, talking to your point more generally, how does chiropractic help with stress? Would require me to go into a little bit of depth about how stress occurs in the brain and how it cascades through the body.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want me to just dive in or you want to divide this
Yeah,
up.
no, no, no. Let's,
Yeah.
if possible, let's dive in. I'll kind of tell you what I'm thinking. Typically,
Yeah.
whenever we work with a patient and they're presenting, let's say, a symptom of stress, the stress can come from anxiety. It can come from post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
It could be that they feel overwhelmed. It could be like my wife just struggles with migraines, and then that causes her to feel stressed because maybe she doesn't feel present with the kids, because it's too much sun outside, and that's causing the migraine. So all
Mm.
these, I pose and I throw them out there to know from that chiropractic end, what's taking place, and maybe that means that you're going to do that cool dance you just did, Amanda, and then dive into that topic.
Yeah, sure. The so as far as like how a lot of patients enter counseling, like the little bit of understanding I have is that often they'll come, yeah, because there's a precipitating event, um,
Hmm.
often some kind of post-traumatic stress,
Yeah.
anxiety, sleeplessness, things like that. All of those things are happening in the prefrontal cortex of their brains. That is the part of our brains that is mediating like how they're experiencing their daily life and how they're expressing who they are as individuals. And that's the area of our brain that captures memory, focus, trauma, sleep, inflammation. It's also the area of our brain that works with what's called the autonomic nervous system, how our body heals.
Hmm.
And so that is the part of the brain that is extremely influenced by spinal movements. And this is a recent breakthrough in the field of neuroscience, which is understanding how spinal movements flood the prefrontal cortex with information. And so when you go through trauma, as I understand it, um, it might be a it affects your perception of reality. You might be in a completely different space right now, but you're reliving the effects and the experiences of that time. You might be blocking out certain new things that are in your environment. Essentially, you're maladapted to the present like circumstance because your brain is so adapted to that one other circumstance.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
correct?
no, you're awesome. Yeah, you're doing perfect. That rings a
Okay.
bell.
Yeah, let me know, because I know that you guys know so much more about the nuances of how like we process trauma and we experience that. But for chiropractors, what is so important to us is how that our brain interprets pain. We know that to be the case. We know that stress and pain can initially start in the body and the mechanics of it, but it is interpreted in the brain. So if the brain is not picking up on it, we won't know that we're in pain.
Hmm.
Or if there's nothing in the body, but the brain is still perceiving it, the body will be put through pain, no matter whether it's existing objectively or not. It is in our reality of our world and our experience, and the body matches that. However, one way to break that perception of what is real and what are we just reliving and on that prefrontal cortex
Hmm.
is through movement of the spine. So this is how our body perceives what is real, is through, so our spine has multiple segments. We
Hmm.
have the lumbar spine at the bottom, the thoracic through the middle, and then the cervical spine at the top, all made up of different little vertebrae. And between those vertebrae, there's a disc. But there's also this very, very thin muscle, which does nothing except perceive motion and movement. And out of that space between these different segments of the spine branches our nervous system. There's the spinal cord that goes through and is protected by the spine like a shield. And then it branches out between each spinal segment. And that little muscle registers what's happening with those nerves.
Wow.
And if our spine isn't moving accurately, if it's not able to, if it's stuck, like you know how sometimes you feel like there's just some stiffness in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like you probably don't think that much about it, but you might notice that you're just kind of trying to like unconsciously move throughout the
Hmm.
day, um, because our brain needs that information. It is hungering for the information, because when our spine is stiff, those little muscles don't receive the messages that they need to know, okay, this is what's going on in this area of my spine. Okay, I've changed from being asleep to being awake. I need different oxygenation needs.
Yeah.
And that means that this part of our spine, the part of our spine that's like, you know, around our chest, like needs that information and that movement. So if it's stiff, it won't be able to wake up properly. It won't be able to adapt to new like respiratory needs, like going from resting to exercising. And that's a lot of the times when we can get issues like asthma. And that's why chiropractors can help a lot of people with asthma. And I know it's not, you know, what we think in Western medicine about, but that is what has been proven out through so many other offices and through so much developing information. But so once our spine is moving properly, we get all this new information to our prefrontal cortex. So instead of it replaying and replaying and replaying these same old scripts, we
Hmm.
have, oh, wow, like the sun has come up. Oh, wow, like I'm eating a taco.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, like I'm surrounded by friends and family. Oh, wow, like I'm in a completely different place.
yeah,
Now I have these other tools and resources around me in order to re-index my brain, my reality, and then my body too. And personally, like I've struggled with anxiety too. I've talked to counselors for years to kind of process through like trauma and just the everyday ups and downs. And I know when I was at my height of both migraines and anxiety, I was
Yeah.
in Colorado and I was getting my PhD, and there was new stresses on me, and I would dwell. I would have racing thoughts. I would dwell on like one thing I said maybe like 2 weeks ago that was like so dumb, and I would just like keep replaying it, and like it was just hard for me to move past that, even though I knew I had new stresses on me and I needed
Hmm.
that. Once I started, that's when I started chiropractic care. My migraines had gotten so bad I just like couldn't move forward with my life, and I was hugely skeptical about chiropractic, but my husband, who was in chiropractic school at the
Yeah.
time, was like, just do it, Amanda. And so I did, and my migraines went from like 3 times a week down to maybe 2 a month after about
Wow.
6 weeks
Awesome.
of chiropractic care. But also, I saw my anxiety shift. Like when I would do something dumb, or when I would say something, that wasn't as like well thought out as I would like to. Instead of dwelling on it, my brain wouldn't let me just dwell on it. It would be like, oh, you know what? It's okay. Like now I can get a taco. Like, that was dumb. Like move on. So there was more bandwidth for me to put a situation into context, because my brain was constantly being nurtured by a new flow. It's kind of like if you have toxins into a body of water and there's no river moving through it, it
Hmm.
will get like toxic very quickly.
Yeah.
However, if you have a spring and a stream moving through it, it will carry those toxins away.
Okay. So just I'm trying to catch up. So whenever like that patient's coming in and they're struggling with whether it's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, some sort of stress, anxiety, and I definitely get those thoughts, the repetitive thoughts of,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still going over the same thing that happened 2 weeks ago. Working with a chiropractor, right? Like coming to your office, they would engage in some sort of work there, some sort of process. And
Yes.
then that's going to allow, if you will, like these arrows, to create a cycle so that the body, the brain, that cortex area is able to carry messages and neurotransmitters, in the way that they should, so that we don't get stuck in having those rapid racing thoughts, like those anxiety driven thoughts.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
So in our office, if somebody comes to us and they say that there's sleeplessness or anxiety or post-traumatic stress, Dr. Huff would first check the first bone of our neck, which is C1, and that's where the sympathetic nervous system comes through. So if our brain is stuck in these cycling
Yeah.
thoughts, we will be stuck in a sympathetic response or flight or fight, not the parasympathetic response,
Yeah.
which is allowing us to relax and focus on long-term rejuvenation, sleep, etc. Rest and digest, they say. So, but then later he'll also try to, it's just moving the spine. So
Hmm.
chiropractors, they'll look at where the body is out of alignment
Hmm.
and get it to start moving. And they do that with full trust that that will get to the body and the brain to start working through and adapting how it needs to stress. And so
So
it might not look like the appointments might not look that different for someone with anxiety than for someone with low back pain.
yeah.
However, the conversation might be slightly different, because I know that you guys know how important it is to not have people stuck in an anxious
Hmm.
response. And so just talking about hope, talking about, what's new in your life,
Yeah.
what are your goals? Those are kind of conversations that we try to like redirect conversations to, and their care to.
Okay, yeah, those are beautiful conversations. Helps us, see tomorrow, see the future, move forward. And
Mm.
I'm kind of just thinking, my clinical brain is going off like Spider-Man with the spider senses. And if someone like someone goes through PTSD or trauma, often one of the things that happens is they'll say it feels like I'm living my life in a different way. It could be that I went to go to the bank and someone put a gun behind my head, and just during the robbery. So then after that, I would, I'd go out with, you and David, and we're hanging out, and you're like, Juan, are you okay? What's going on? And I'm just, looking over my shoulder, And then what happened is I'm starting to live my life in a different way. That trauma has taken control of me. But now I'm getting kind of curious, and I'm going, what's going on with that spinal cord? Is that area
Exactly.
not letting messages, being received? Is fluidity not there? So then from your
Exactly.
end, from that professional chiropractic end, it's something did take place there. And there is that holistic work, right, of working with a clinician, but balancing it with chiropractor too.
Yeah. So what we would see is that, like, you know, mechanically, their body is not allowing them to intake the new information from their environments and their surroundings to properly attune their brain to what is actually happening. It's
Hmm.
being starved. And you'll probably notice that they might be like tense like this all the
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
They'll actually like lift up their um shoulders, and that reinforces that sympathetic response because it cuts off so much of the parasympathetic system. Your parasympathetic system goes through your spine in every single level of your spine. However, your sympathetic response is only on through the top and the very bottom of your spine. 80% comes out from here. So if you're like this, you're closed off, everything else is tight, except here, the only one that's able to function is that flight or fight, not that parasympathetic, not that dynamic understanding of all of these functions we need to survive as a full, healthy individual that deserves rest and relaxation. But just as somebody that is constantly having to fight to get
Yeah.
through the day.
You're absolutely right about those symptoms. Just thinking when I'm working with a certain patient, I do see that where it's tightness, or sharing a lot of different physiological symptoms, hand tremors,
Yes.
rapid heart rate, irregular
Yes.
breathing. And then again, I'm thinking that relates to, that spinal cord, just branches off and connects it, the entire human body.
Yes, absolutely. So your sympathetic nervous system goes from the top and it goes to every single organ and every single cell. Your parasympathetic goes to every single nerve
Hmm.
and every single cell too. But so if they're in that fight or flight, their cortisol and their hormones are flowing through all of those systems, and it needs information from those organs to go back up to your brain to say, actually, I'm fine. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm okay. And that's not going to happen if your spine isn't in a place to give those information, if those tiny muscles aren't getting that dynamic information to your brain.
Mm. I love these moments. I'm just smiling and I'm just thinking this is what treatment is about.
It's
Yeah,
transformative.
yeah, yeah. And this is so many variables to it. I love the holistic model, just being able to look at how can we implement different resources to move someone forward. And I've been trying to just dive into more of understanding the field of chiropractic. I think we get to know our field very well, and
Mm,
we know what connects to our field. So like for most of us that go through mental health programs in school, we get to know medication management,
yes.
right? So a psychiatrist or someone prescribing that. But when it comes to, unless my school is just a little bit different, which I love the education I received, not here to bash it in any way. Go Rams, WSSU. Uh,
Okay.
but the field of chiropractic, that, or acupuncture, massage therapist, those, I'm pushing myself to learn more and more so that whenever I'm working with patients, we're able to say, yes, check out, Good Health. I think they're going to be able to work with you. And then maybe
Yes.
professionally we can collaborate and say, how are things going on that end, and vice versa.
Yes. You are very rare in the fact that you even thought to think about chiropractic and mental health. Chiropractic has been divorced from the mainstream like interventions since the 1950s, when pharmaceutical companies became a lot more powerful in our healthcare landscape. And because of that, and because chiropractors believe so strongly that in supporting how our bodies are made to function, and if they just focus on that, there would be way less health problems in the world, they did not want to prescribe medication since the beginning of and continuing today. They actually fought to not have the right to prescribe, and they're still fighting to not have the right to prescribe. And because of that, and because of kind of the political economy of a lot of our healthcare systems, we've been left out of a lot of situations and conversations. But the tide is starting to turn. People are looking for more natural options. Chiropractic is getting better as a field and understanding the biomechanical triggers for why it's been effective. But to your case, I mean, I know a lot of this is kind of abstract, and you've done a great job of bringing it down to a little bit more clinical. But maybe it would be helpful to describe, like, you know, a lot of the cases that we get in our clinic, people who have anxiety, people who have, maybe they've lost a spouse and they cannot sleep. And it's just an all-consuming anxiety. Once they get in chiropractic, and they don't really understand it either, because, like, I mean, we can say this to them and they're like, yeah, like it's still making the connection from like the spine to their brain doesn't really make that much sense to people, but they'll feel it and they'll be like, yeah, you know, like I have been able to sleep better. I'm like, you know, and we see a change in their eyes. Their eyes start to relax around them. They're more, they're a little bit brighter. We see the muscles around their shoulders start to relax more, the muscle tension. You know, when you get in that stress, that fight or flight response, your major muscles are, get tense, because that's what you need. You need a rigid body if you're fighting or flighting.
Exactly.
That starts to relax. They're moving more. We see more movement in their faces and their bodies, more of those minor movements. And we know that they are in a different place. Their body is more soft, and they're able to take in the softer, more gentle aspects of their environment.
I like that. I enjoy that you hit on those key points of functioning, you know, sleep, appetite, because those are important ones when it comes to, like, you know, the clinical work. I think most clinicians are on the same page as I am. You know, we really focus on make sure you're sleeping well. So it's from my end, like, it's nice to know that if you're working with someone that I'm working with as well, and we're able to check off they're sleeping well, that makes the rest of the work we're doing from the clinical end so much easier. You know, but if you're asking someone, hey, I'd like for you to engage in some deep breathing or some exercise, some writing exercises, but they're not sleeping well, I mean, that's problematic, right? I mean, we know what it's like when we're not sleeping well. We don't want to do any of that mess. We're tired.
And what happens when you sleep is your mind and the deep unconscious parts of your brain is able to start processing and basically detoxing and kind of organizing what was eventful from today, what was not eventful from today, what do I need to remember, what do I need to forget. And if that organization doesn't happen in our sleep, we are constantly overwhelmed. We have no idea what's important or what's not important. Our brain just starts to malfunction, and then that creates even more disconnection from reality. So we know sleep is important, and that's been one of the most consistent clinical results from chiropractic is increases in sleep, because spinal movements have been shown to increase function to the prefrontal cortex by 300%. And that's that prefrontal cortex that does that has those sleep patterns and those sleep cycles.
Fascinating. You know your stuff so well. I feel like we could go so deep into this conversation, but it seems like, you know, we got the core of it. You know, I wanted to have you here to look at the relationship between stress and working with a chiropractor. And I think you did a beautiful job of doing that. I also love the community that I'm a part of, Greensboro. And I know when we did our first interview, you love it too. Yeah. So virtual high five.
It's the best city in the world.
So I thought to myself, I said, I want to have Amanda back on so that we can really get into stress and the field of chiropractic. Would you say the field of chiropractic?
It is the field of chiropractic. Yes.
I just want to say the field of chiropractors, but I know it's
Oh, I
completely wrong.
mean, that's not incorrect. I used to say chiropractic. That's wrong.
I like that one. I'm gonna have to use. I'll use that one and coin it. I said, listen, Dr. Szabo said this, so it's all good.
No. I said I used to say it. I'm gonna look terrible in the field.
So if people are out there, and you shared it earlier, let's share it one more time. How are they able to reach out and schedule an appointment?
Yes, well, we are open and we have spread out our office. We are keeping it very, very clean, sanitizing between each patient, any surfaces that they touch, our hands, we're wearing masks. And importantly, most of their visits are going to be less than 3 minutes time with each of us. So the chances of infection are very low in our office. So yes, we're ready and willing to take care of anybody that wants us right now. And you can reach our office at 336-509-4963. Where our office is located right near Kickback Jack's. We're across from the Lamborghini dealership in Greensboro next to Rough Housing. But you can also email me at amanda@goodhealthgreensboro, all spelled out, .com. And I wanted to say there's a special project that I'm working on. And again, I am not a doctor of chiropractic. I have learned this field as a skeptic, looking inside and not being able to explain why I've seen the types of astounding improvements that I have in people. I didn't believe it if I wasn't right there next to my husband, Dr. David Huff, who actually got North Carolina Chiropractor of the Year award
Whoa,
and small
whoa,
business,
nice.
yeah,
Way to
and
go.
small business person
Congratulations.
of the year by the Chamber of Commerce. So yeah,
Congratulations.
he's a great
Yeah.
teacher. He's a great physician. Yeah, seeing him explain it. But I have my PhD in communication, and so kind of decoding chiropractic for the public is a passion of mine. And one of the things we want to roll out, I'm working with a major researcher in the field of neuroscience and chiropractic, who's actually done a lot of these clinical trials that I referred to in this interview. She is creating an app that would allow anybody that has a smartphone to track how their stress response is. And that would take inputs of heart rate variability, use like an accelerometer to see how their movement patterns are throughout the day and throughout their sleep, as well as postural analysis, because we know how much posture and the movements of the spine affect what kind of function the brain is able to have. So if you're interested, we are looking for beta testers of this new technology.
Yeah.
Yes, please email me at amanda@goodhealthgreensboro.com, and I'd love to connect you.
Perfect. I'll make sure to share those in the show notes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for being here, as
Thank you,
always.
Juan, for your care for our community and for searching for healing in unlikely places.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that title there.